What's up guys, it's Man 5000. Today we're back for another action figure review, and we are finishing off Super7 TMNT Ultimates Wave 2 with perhaps the most unique figure to come out in this line so far, and that is Mutagen Man. And what an oddball pick, such an obscure character in the vast lineage of characters in Ninja Turtles, but in Wave 2 especially, I think someone at Super7 is definitely a fan of this design. But either way, it makes for a very cool and very unique action figure so early in this line. The box, as we're used to with these Ultimates, is the brown shipper. It's got the Ninja Turtles logo. When you remove that, you're getting the slip cover. He's done in green here, and that's been up for debate, at least I've seen on the internet, because on the old toys he was listed as a Foot Soldier or a Foot Clan enemy, but in these he's listed as like hero with the green colors. I feel like they almost should have made a different color scheme for these kind of characters, but it doesn't really bother me. I'm sure if you're some kind of purist it might, but for me, I'm fairly new to the Ninja Turtles game, and I just like the design of this guy over anything else. The window box, you're seeing everything you're getting in the box. Not as many accessories, but there's a lot more going on with the figure. When you flip it around, you're getting the read-up. But that does just about cover the packaging on Mutagen Man. So let's get to it. Let's open this guy up and let's take a look. And with Mutagen Man out of the packaging, we'll go over his accessories, which is going to be the most brief out of all these figures. He comes included with a bunch of different garbage pieces, and the coolest one is the little baby turtle. And hopefully we see this baby turtle kind of reused throughout the line, and we can get 4 of them eventually to put with Splinter. Those little garbage pieces are actually represented in the weapon sprue here, but not his actual weapon, which is this big kind of ray gun, vacuum gun. I don't even know what to call this thing. It's yellow plastic, and it's got some gold paint on it. Very unique sculpt, something that could only go in the hands of a character like Mutagen Man. And then finally, he's just got the alternate sets of hands. He's got one pair of fists, and then he's got the pair of gripping hands to hold those weapons. But that does do it for the accessories. I guess those little garbage pieces you could actually kind of plug into them. We'll go over that feature first. He does have his play feature intact from the Playmates toy. You can pop this lid on him, this bright pink lid on the top. You can see it just comes out like a plug there. And I've actually seen people online filling this guy up with water and slime and things like that, but I have seen it's also ruining their figures, so not something I'm going to do, but maybe throwing those garbage pieces in here, maybe that's the idea. I wouldn't do that either. I put those right back in the box, and that's where they're going to stay. They're very small pieces, and I don't want to lose them. But where to even begin with Mutagen Man, I guess would be in the middle. So a really unique design. I will say, though, actually looking at the cartoon version, I actually do prefer that design. He's got a much more prominent, like, huge face here, big eyes and a big mouth in the middle, and I think that just looks more striking on a shelf. Here you kind of have to look at him and see what's going on. So on the inside, what you have is like all the essential organs. You got a little skull there and then a brain that's popping out of it. The eyes are popping out in a very cartoonish way. But the one thing I have a bit of a gripe of is that I think they really could have went in and, to make this an ultimate figure, painted each one of these organs a different color, and maybe this bone color for the skeleton. Now that's not necessarily accurate to the original designs or anything, but there's a lot of extra paint, a lot of added detail with these Ultimates, and you see that on the sides here. With this one, they actually just took the vintage toy and really kind of sized it up, added a bit of a wash to these organs, but they didn't really add to the design of this guy like I wish they did, especially in that inner part here. I really do wish they just went over each of these, even if they were just different shades. You had some lighter reds, you had some pinks, you had some whites in there, and you really made a whole different anatomy here where it'd really stand out. You could tell what it is right away, because right now it just looks like a bunch of red goo until you really get in and look at it. And when you do look at it, there's good sculpt. You can see each kind of organ is represented pretty well. You could tell exactly what they are. The skull here looks pretty good. It's like a shrunken skull. He's got the tongue sticking out, the eyes are popping out, and those are painted well. And then the big brain up here has the wash through it, so you can see all the little folds pretty well. It's like a purple wash over this pink painted skeleton here. So overall, it looks pretty good, but I think there's room for improvement there that this ultimate figure should have went for. That being said, there is still quite a lot of just strange assembly and not something you're used to on a modern collector action figure. He's got this whole dome here, and you can see where it's kind of attached in here with these pegs. Unfortunately, that's going to show through, but it is going to make sure this figure is structurally sound and it's not going to crack in half. He's got tons of tubes feeding, one from the cap here, which is painted in a pink color, and it's got like a remote kind of control thing going on here. On the back, his yellow oxygen tanks is what's feeding him into here, and then you can see they attach to this device, which goes into this tube, into the tubes that go into his chest, and there's actually like a chest armor kind of molded onto here, which is pretty interesting. Not like that'd be particularly useful, but it just adds to the aesthetic, adds to the overcomplicated design in a good way of Mutagen Man. But you got tons of kind of retro futuristic looking designs here, these kind of geometric shapes, these dials and pins and all these different pieces. There's actually a very subtle thing they did here, which I do appreciate. They added some metallic purple, which is like the same purple done in metallic. So you really have to kind of stare at it. But you can see at the bases, like where the washers would be. On these tubes, all the bases of them are done in the metallic silver. You're getting some on the sides here for these capsules. I wish they went ahead and did it on these front-facing buttons, because I think those would have really popped right here. And maybe even if they painted this area right here in the metallic purple, that would have looked really good as well. Going outside of the dome here, we're moving on to this really rancid, fleshy looking character. And honestly, it's a really awesome 90s gross out design. And that's really why I'm gravitating towards it. So really cool, like ripped up flesh. You got these muscle tendons painted in purple underneath, all of which do have a really good texture. And I'm sure that's a really big improvement over the Playmates. I did say they kind of just took the original and upsized it. That's kind of what they did, but there is more refined detail here when it comes to things like the muscle sculpt. But that stuff looks really good, and also what looks really good is similar to Shredder, but even more so, there's a metallic blue going on for these metal riveted parts here around the elbow, the wrist, and all this is just detail. It's all just these greebly little parts. There's not even much I could really call them. You got one final bracer around the right leg, and then even when you get down to the feet here, you got one that's covered in this like robotics here, and it's got this whole harness over it with the pink plastic. There's no metallic here, which is weird, but it's on both feet. There's no metallic. So I guess it at least matches in that regard. But he's got this whole robotic boot here. On the other side, he's got this like clawed foot, and it's got a hole in it and everything like that. Even on the fist, there's like some flesh coming out. And on the other one, it's plain, and you can see more of that mutated skin. But overall, it's a very unique design, and a design that I gravitate towards just because of that 90s gross out look that it is going for. Articulation, he's probably going to be one of the most limited figures in this line, but for good reason, I guess you could say. He's sculpted phenomenally, and he looks great. But there's basically nothing in this whole middle section, as you might expect. It's really all on the limbs here, which are pretty good. You can see he's going above 90 degrees, which not a lot of figures can do here. And of course, that does swivel. The elbows are actually a lot better than you'd expect. They're maybe over 45 degrees, which they don't look like they would be, but they did a good job there, maintaining as much of that sculpt as possible, but still giving it a bit of a range of motion. The other arm actually is closer to 90, but not by that much. The hands are going to swivel and they're going to hinge side to side. Even the leg splits, they're really good on all these figures, and you can see they go up pretty far. It's actually different on each leg due to the asymmetry. He can kick back, not so much. Kick forward, pretty decent. The single jointed knee, let's try it on this side. That's almost 90. On the other side, it's a bit worse. And then both of the feet are going to hinge back that far, and they do have just a little bit of ankle rocker. Maybe even not so much on the booted leg, but this one does get the rocker. So there's asymmetry, there's strange articulation, and very limited articulation. But I don't see why you'd need your Mutagen Man to do any poses. He's not the ninja of this line. So I think for what you're getting, I think the poses are fine. The sculpt here definitely more than makes up for it. But with the very strange aesthetic of Mutagen Man taken care of and the articulation, let's go ahead and let's do my favorite part and let's do some comparison. And we'll start out with the turtles so far. We got Raphael and Leonardo from the same set. And you can see Mutagen Man is a bit taller. He's about the same height as Shredder, who we'll get into, but he's much wider. He's just about as wide as Bebop. So you can see the height is a lot closer to Shredder. The width is a lot closer to Bebop. Bebop actually might still have a bit of width on him, but it's not by that much. You can see they're both in this kind of squat pose I have him in. But overall, a really great sense of scale in this line. I think that Mutagen Man having such a differentiation where you can kind of put him between certain characters in the width and the height and stuff like that. It's all cool. They're not all the same like the original Playmates. With that, we'll bring in some other mutants. We got Baxter Stockman and we got Splinter. And then finally with the Foot Soldier, and I'm out of Super 7s to use, so here's the Moto Batman. And then finally, I'm going to skip the movie figures and let's look at the NECA, Krang, the Foot Soldier, and the April O'Neil from the cartoon. And the colors here are all very similar, so these work together on a shelf. I do think that Mutagen Man, however, does not reach that cutoff. I think he's going to look very out of place when you put him next to movie characters. And that is going to finish our coverage of Wave 2 of these Super 7 figures. I think it's such a great line so far, even just 2 waves in, and I'm so excited for the future of this line. I'm definitely all in. I got everything I can pre-ordered so far, and we'll see where it goes from there. If you're a fan of this, make sure you catch up on my previous reviews of all these figures, as well as the Raphael from Wave 1. I also looked at the NECA Krang and the NECA April O'Neil and Foot Soldier if you're interested in that. There's also a whole backlog of WWE, AEW, DC Multiverse, Marvel Legends, and everything in between on the channel here you could check out. I'm going to be leaving this video off with some figure photography, and you can see my whole library of figure photography on Instagram, scoopman_5000. But that is going to do it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.